This is the Brand Gravity Show, where we explore the intersection between branding and psychology. I'm your host, psychology-driven brand strategist Kay Putnam, and I am so excited to share today's guest with you. Kinsey Machos is somebody that I found just randomly on Instagram, and I was immediately drawn to her expertise that she shares with heart. She's truly walking her own talk on the platform and is creating really effective, compelling content. And I immediately knew that I wanted to have her on the show so that I could learn more about her and her wisdom and her expertise. And I can't wait to share our conversation with you. We do center a lot on marketing, which is more the demand part of the equation in my Clarity Code process. So once you have the brand, you know what your offer is, and you're getting ready to get out into the world, this is where this conversation fits into that equation. Kinsey Machos is a top business consultant in her industry, host of a top-rated podcast, and CEO of a globally ranked brand. When Kinsey walked away from corporate and launched her business, her primary goal was to have more time and freedom to be with her husband and 3 kids. She quickly came to realize how many women were undervaluing their own wisdom, experiences, and expertise. Her purpose to serve women and to help them understand their true genius grew deeper and wider. Kinsey continues to disrupt the masculine-heavy approach to marketing and has been able to help thousands of women create impact-driven businesses by reflecting their own authenticity and brilliance online. A woman after my own heart. I can't wait to share this conversation with you. Let's get into it. Kinsey, thank you so much for being here on the Brand Gravity Show. I'm so excited to dive into your zone of genius, your expertise. For those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, can you share a little bit about your story to get us started?
Yeah. Hi, Kay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Kinsey Machos. I'm a business consultant and marketing strategist. And my story really starts, in a nutshell, I think the biggest sort of relevancy to entrepreneurship was my background in corporate. So I worked my way up the corporate ladder for many, many years, practically a decade. And meanwhile, my husband and I are growing our family, doing all the things. I got my master's degree in business administration, and I was like corporate was life for me. And we had this heart tug around having a 3rd child. And it was a really hard decision for us to make because we were both working really, really hard. And although we desired to grow our family, it felt really overwhelming. We had very little time and we just weren't really sure. We felt really conflicted. But ultimately, we made the decision to have a 3rd baby. And that was sort of the pivotal moment when I realized, I remember birthing this new human, and I came out, it was like I birthed I awakened a new version of myself in that process. And I realized that everything that I had spent the last decade building, I no longer wanted, but I didn't know what was next. And all I knew was what I didn't want. I spent, the greatest 3 months of maternity leave home with my baby and my other 2 kids, and realized I wanted more of that. And that was sort of the pull that I needed, the more of the push that I needed to just take a leap of faith and walk away. And so we weren't financially in a spot. I was the breadwinner. And so we weren't in a financial spot that I could just do that without any sort of what are you going to bring money in? What are you going to do? So over time, I think this is the course of 6 months after I went back to maternity leave, I had started to dabble in social media and just sharing my story. I didn't really have anything to sell yet, but I was just inviting people along in my journey. And that was when people started to send me private messages and ask me how do you do these things? How do you do that? How do you do this? And questions. And that was sort of the light bulb moment. And I sold my first coaching program. And shortly after that, I walked away from corporate. So That was in a nutshell. I know it's such a journey, right? I think it makes it sound like it was like this overnight thing, but that's like a decade's worth of over a decade's worth of a discovery process and exploration.
I can so resonate with that act of becoming a mother or a mother again, that it is so life-changing. I also made the jump into entrepreneurship with my first child and then went fully on my own with my second child. So it's like a whole new version of you comes forward. And I love that happened for you. Just to dive straight into the nitty gritty, what kinds of stories were you starting to share on social? Like, how did you start to build that following of people that were interested in what you were doing?
So it was really like I was in this huge personal development journey. So I was starting to like become exposed to that world. And I was navigating a lot of things, motherhood, career, marriage, friendships as an adult. And I just, as I started to learn things and observe things, I just shared it. So it was like a book that I was reading and something that I learned. It was sort of like my own insecurities as a mom and how I overcome them. It was a peek into my marriage and our unique story and how we work together as a couple. It was just, there was no rhyme or reason other than I just saw it as like, this is my journey. And I think there are other people that are probably struggling with things that I've struggled with. And I just invite you to be a part of that journey with me.
That's amazing. I think that's a powerful distinction because it sounds like you were stepping into a leadership role or a role of service, of giving back intentionally, as opposed to just, I don't know, documenting breakfast or what have you. I'm sure maybe you did some of that as well, but I think it's the teaching or the leading that inspires people to follow along. So tell me, what are you selling these days? Like, what is your main offer? What do people know you for?
Yeah, so our signature offer is 10K Content Collective. And this is where we teach coaches how to build a coaching business using organic content. So we're a really firm believer of mastering the foundations as an online business owner. I grew my coaching business to 100K in less than a year, only with just one social media account, organic, again, just me like demonstrating that leadership in my content. And I think now more than ever, the industry is so noisy and there's so many different strategies. Truly, there's so many different ways you can convert clients. There's so many different platforms. There's so many different selling mechanisms and different even vehicles for selling your thing, programs, masterminds, courses, And so we just kind of like pull it back and start with the basics and help coaches get the most momentum. You can squeeze so much out. You can do so much, multi-six figures with the simple basics of content and conversations in one coaching offer. And so that's where we're getting known in the space. And we just love it so much.
And I love that you are walking your own talk as a brand. The way that I found you was literally on Instagram. It was probably some random rabbit hole, the way that those things happen. And you are masterful at being personable and sharing yourself and sharing your story, but also being that leader that we talked about just a moment ago, of sharing what your offers are, what the results are, what the transformation is. Do you have like an overarching framework or point of view when it comes to creating content? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, so we approach it from, first of all, the notion that selling is serving. So one of the things that I think that people get confused about is like the difference between value and selling. I don't know if you ever were taught this, but I was taught it this way. And I know a lot of the women that come into our program are taught is like, get 80% of your content is value and then 20% is selling. And so what happens is we separate ourselves. It's like, this is me and this is my life. And, look at my cats and my dogs and my breakfast. And, once in a while, I'm going to show you this offer. And we bring that together. And when we start with this idea, first of all, selling is serving, and your offer, the gifts that you have to provide to your audience, to your potential clients, that is your brand. That's the epicenter of your messaging and your marketing and your selling. And so when we come to create content, we help them put together their content strategy in a way that aligns with their offer, but also with their heart and the heartbeat of their dream client. And when you mold your unique brilliance and the heartbeat of your dream client, you get this beautiful blend of a pure, beautiful message, but it's also, hey, I have a gift. Do you want it? And so we don't want to stray away from ever feeling like making offers and sharing. And so that's really like our philosophy inside of 10K Content Collective and anywhere. And you'll see us represent, you'll see me create content in that way, but that's really where we start. And that's why people get such big results, because it's like, they're showing up in such a bigger way. And it's that permission to be making offers from a very genuine space.
That is so powerful. And that word permission was exactly what was going through my mind too. I feel, particularly as women, maybe men deal with this as well. I feel like we are constantly looking for hurdles that we have to jump over before we're allowed to sell, before we're allowed to step into that state of receiving. And it is a magical momentum happens when you simply make offers more often. And it really does take that shift of perspective that you are serving, you're giving when you're selling, you're not just receiving. I love that.
Yeah, so good.
What top mistakes do you see people making, other than the one that we just talked about, but are there other mistakes that you see that people make often before they work with you?
Yeah. So we see a lot of the over complicating, their marketing strategies. So the feeling that I need more, I need another lead magnet, I need another offer, I need an email sequence. And I think there's a time and a place for those assets. And, we have them, but it's like when you're first getting going, especially up until your first 100K, just like remove as many barriers as you can between you and your potential client. And I think so we talk a lot about like the sequence to success. And what happens is, we tend to, and I think we're all guilty of this. We tend to like grab onto or latch onto strategies that are sort of out of sequence from where we're at. So like for women that are just beginning, they're grabbing onto these like really complicated strategies that somebody's selling them that, they're, 10 steps ahead, which it's working for them now. But what they missed was the context and everything they did to build up to that. And so it's like when you're just getting started, pull back the barriers. It's like simplify everything. And just try to like, and you said it well, the hurdles, like, because not only are you jumping over hurdles as a new entrepreneur or even a seasoned entrepreneur, we're always jumping over hurdles. But every time you put, an asset in between you and your potential client, they're also jumping over hurdles to get to you. And so we find that coaches make it really hard for their potential clients to hire them. And so we try to just like clean that up and simplify that. And I think in tandem to that too, I think this idea of like passive, like the automations. So I'm just going to like set it and forget it. Again, I think that that comes in sequence, and I think building up to that, but I don't know, like there is nothing in our business right now that like is a true set it and forget it. Like we have to, even like an email automation, like we have to like check into the stats and like monitor it and see if it's working. And again, the heartbeats that are opening those emails, like for people that have a smaller following, I think like taking advantage of that and like striking up a conversation with people that are, like checking out your stuff. So I think it's the biggest mistake is the complication and just kind of doing things out of sequence is what we see the most.
Yes.
And I think too, like there's all these tactical things, right? Like the thought that, well, I just need better hashtags, or I need to do more reels, or, well, I need to be on TikTok. And like, again, the industry is so noisy. I don't blame anybody for this. And we tend to fall into this at times too, is like do we need to be on Twitter? Or like, just because the pressure, because you have marketers that are doing their job, and they convince you that you need more of these things to be successful, but it's just not. It's not true.
Yes. Yes. Full stop. So good. I love that you have called your audience or your people, I like to say people that are in my orbit, heartbeats, because it brings us back to the soul of the person, like the heart of the person, literal heart of the person that is on the other side of the screen. How do you learn about that person on a soul level? Like, how do you get into their heart, get into their mind so that your content is resonating with them?
Yeah. This is my favorite thing to talk about, because this is truly the key to success, I think, when it comes to content. And this is a big part of our program is called the Heartbeat of a Dream Client. And first of all, I think the first step in anything, and we still do this several years in, is actually having real life conversations with your dream clients. Imagine that. And this is not like this is not like posting a question on Facebook and seeing the responses. This is getting on the phone with people that are your ideal clients and asking them really good questions. That's the first thing. And I think too, when you kind of move beyond, we want to move beyond the surface level demographic identifiers and get down to their heart and understand what their values are, what's important to them, what is keeping them up at night, what are the things that they're most afraid of. And when you start to go deeper with the questions you ask, you're going to get really good answers. And so for people that don't have a large clientele to pull from, because a lot of our research now is coming from current clients, we're in it with them so much that we know, like for me, I think of one client, or I think of one question that client asked me on a call, or I think, right. And when I write, I'm thinking of that one person in that one scenario. So we get a lot of questions about like, how do I move from general? So like, how do I stop speaking generally about my offer or about my person? And this is what you do. You drop into one heartbeat and in one scenario, right? So what are they doing right now, or what were they doing then that's causing the pain problem or causing them to desire something that you can speak to? And that's so powerful, and it allows you to draw out even more content ideas because you get to be so specific.
Yes. Yes. Specificity sells. I have a bone to pick with traditional market research for that exact same reason. The data, again, air quotes, that we find on the internet about our potential clients is it just skims the surface of the actual humans behind our business. And I've had that exact same experience. The only way, and by far the best way, that I've learned about my clients has been by having more conversations on video, asking deep questions. Yes. We're going to get right back to the interview. For the next few seconds, I'm going to share with you my Brand Clarity Collective and how it can help you grow your income and impact. If you're an entrepreneur who feels stuck or uncertain about what makes your brand stand out, then this is for you. The Brand Clarity Collective is a mastermind multiplied by mentorship. It's part online curriculum, part digital mastermind, and it's designed to help you get crystal clear brand clarity so you attract more perfect clients and grow your business. We have a thriving community of entrepreneurs who are all smart and driven. As a member of the collective, you get an all-access pass to all of my best branding courses, as well as access to our private community where you can connect with like-minded entrepreneurs and get feedback and support directly from me on our coaching calls. The Brand Clarity Collective is priced at just $297 per month, and after 6 months, you keep lifetime access to all of the courses. To learn more and to see if it's right for you, head over to my homepage at kputnam.com. There's a big section where you can click to learn more. I'll also include the link in the show notes wherever you are listening or watching. All right, let's get back. If somebody's just getting started and they don't have a huge audience, How do they go about having more of those conversations? Like, do you have a strategy or a method to generate more
Yeah.
conversations?
Yeah. So ultimately, it's so funny because we call this, we have a method called the fastest path declines, and we demonstrate the fastest path, obviously in 10K is content, so you post a piece of content, it generates interest. And so you have conversations with people and you on the phone, and then you make an offer to them on the phone. So that's the fastest path. But we do say there's even a faster path than that, because we just, again, if we think about all the barriers as you move down the triangle of different iterations of how to market and sell, the fastest path is to just pick up the phone and call somebody. Now, this is like cold calling, and we're not asking you to do that. But I think it helps us really understand and put into context, like, what's wrong with picking up the phone and calling somebody and saying, hey, I'm designing a really great offer, and I just really want to be able to understand what I'm missing, and I want to make it perfect. And I think it's something that you might like, but I just really want to ask questions to ensure. And again, you have to do this under the umbrella that, these people are your ideal clients. But I just pull back a little bit, because I think we overcomplicate anything. Well, I don't have an audience. Who should I tap on? I'm like, could you go through your context? Is there one person in your network that that might be a potential client? And just like simplify it. And like when we kind of like sit into that, it's just like, oh, like, but again, first of all, you have the ego and the fear around, oh, I could never do that. I could never just pick up well, yeah, you could. And this is your first sort of call to action in that courageous act, like you're being courageous and stepping into your message. And so when you think of it that way, it just simplifies. So I think to more tactically answer your question, it is like, visit your network. Who in your network is a potential client? And you could on social media, obviously ask the question, hey, are you this type of person? And then you get in the DMs with me, hey, or DMs with them, and you say, hey, I would love to take a couple minutes on the phone with you. Like, I'm not going to sell you anything. This is totally for free. And you might even find value in some of the coaching that happens. So it's really service and operating from that place too.
So good. And I love that you shared that exact language that you might use in the DMs. For some reason, I get hung up on, even like at my stage of business, I get hung up like, oh, if I'm in the DMs with somebody, like, how do I actually transition to a call? And I think that was such a
it's such a big hang up. And I think too, it's because our brains don't want to be, I think we go into the judgment of how they're perceiving us, or not wanting to come off as spammy, right? As heart-centered entrepreneurs, we're overly cautious about being super spammy. But I think the truth is, like, any of us, we're not that way. And if you're asking yourself that, it's a good indicator. So it's like, just be yourself and do it from a place of service.
Yes. Always return to that knowing, that knowledge that you are doing this in the spirit of service, that you're doing this to help people. And that if you hold back, if you continue to overcomplicate your business or add in all of these hurdles in between you and helping somebody, they don't get your help. And it's important to return to that truth and that knowledge. Yes. Let's graduate to a little bit more of an advanced question for this kind of like last major topic here. What are some of the psychological triggers that we need to speak to when we're creating content that gets people ready to buy from us? Like, are there specific things that we need to address?
Yeah. So I always tell people, like, whether they're a client or not, and even when people become clients, you're always selling. Everything we do is selling, right? It's like when you're trying to get your child to empty the dishwasher, right? You have to create a compelling argument for it, a compelling message around it. And so I think it's always, first, it goes back against, I love talking about selling. Obviously, marketing is my zone of genius, but I believe marketing is selling and selling is serving. And when we think about selling to our audience or selling even to our current clients, it's always about the influence. And we have to look at it from the lens of them. So a lot of us want to create content from our frame of perspective, or like me. But when people are on social, they're thinking, or when they're in a challenge, or when they're in a masterclass, or wherever, they're thinking, what's in it for me? And so we have to like drop in there, again, drop into the heart and the mind, and understand what is preventing them from getting the results, and also trusting you to help them get the result. And there's always limiting factors there. There's limiting beliefs. There's gonna be their own perception about your industry, your solution, and you have to understand those. This is going to be at the surface level. This is going to look different for every industry, every niche. But I think at the deepest level, it's always understanding that people do not believe that they can get the result for themselves. And so we have to show them, we have to demonstrate why, how this is possible, and show them that I think we tend to, in content and even in like conversion events, right? Masterclasses, challenges, and things like that. We want to teach people. We want to give them a lot of how-to information. It's like, if I just teach them, if I just give them some quick wins, maybe they'll hire me. And I think that used to work really well. But because I think the influx of information, I think now people are just overwhelmed with more information. And so I always go from, what are they thinking right now that's preventing them from believing that they can achieve what they want? And that creates so much more momentum than sort of like, I just need to teach them how to do something, or I need to just get them a quick win. Is that helpful?
Yes, that was such a massive shift for me as well, especially in the context of masterclasses and webinars. I just over taught all of the time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We all do.
It took a long time to realize that wasn't actually being of service. That wasn't actually helping people if they left that class feeling so overwhelmed that they didn't do anything. I didn't get to continue to help them and continue to serve. And yeah, it's incredibly important.
And I think that this is where, even for the listeners that have clients, if you think about like, what's going to prevent your client, now that they're a client, you still have to continue to build belief and sell them on the next step. So if your clients aren't showing up to coaching calls, why not? I always taking ownership for that. And it's like, there's we get a lot of women too that have like group programs, and they're saying like, clients aren't showing up to my calls. And we come to find out that people are still afraid. They still struggle with the imposter syndrome, the doubt, the insecurity. And so when you start to understand why this is happening and why they aren't coming to the call, a lot of times it's either the belief isn't there, or right, the expectation hasn't been clear. And so we always it's like telling people, demonstrating the next step. What does that look like? And speaking to, right, that prevention. What is preventing them from believing, right, that they can achieve and or really see themselves to that result?
I think you gave some examples of this already, but I really want to underline this point. How specifically can we build that belief or instill that confidence in either our clients or our prospects?
Yeah. Are you asking like in content?
Yes. So like, what are we actually doing to inspire them to show up for themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I love to write, first of all, stories, right? So I think all content should follow some sort of story framework where it's even a journey, even if it's not like a true story of somebody or something, you can still take people on a journey. And I think the biggest belief builder is allowing your potential client, your audience, to see themselves in that piece of content or in that story. And so obviously I love to do my own story, I still share my own story in different iterations and variations, and share how I've struggled with the same things that all of our potential clients struggled with. And when you can do this, and even sharing your clients' stories, right, and really helping them see themselves in that of like, oh, that's where I'm at now. And oh yeah, that's where I want to be. And this story just showed me that that's possible for me because I think people get so consumed with their own feelings and they start to believe that they're an anomaly for having those feelings. And so we get to say like, I hear you, I see you. This is normal. And also, here's what's possible for you when you XYZ.
Yes. Yes. The beautiful thing about stories is it creates that specificity that we were talking about earlier. You get to tell the story about a very particular situation. It helps sharpen writing so much to talk about a specific moment or a specific instance that happened. Amazing. So my people love to learn. What has been the most transformational book, podcast, course, anything that has changed your life or your business the most?
Oh my gosh. Well,
No pressure.
I'm like a book nerd.
Same.
So there are so many, but this one's been top of mind lately, The Untethered Soul.
Oh, yes.
And it's come up a lot. So for some reason, I have been recommending it a lot. And so I have a lot of clients that are reading it too, and it's changing them. But there's this, I think he just does a really beautiful job of kind of demonstrating how to see that your thoughts are not you. And it was just, it was really beautiful. And I remember exactly where I was reading it. It was a really unique time in my life. So, you know how sometimes it's not just what you're reading, it's kind of like the context of what you're reading it in. So I would 100% Untethered Soul.
It's such a good book. And if you have read the book, obviously rereading it, if you're in a different context, is amazing. I do that with all of my favorite books. But I've also listened, I can't remember the website. I'm struggling to come up with the name, but there's a website that I think it's like continuing education credits for counselors, psychologists, etc. I bet if you would search for the author's name, it would come up. And he has some courses that expand on the content of the book that are incredible. I got so much out of, and I think it goes by the same name. I think it's Untethered Soul, maybe at work or in life, something of that nature.
Cool. I'll check that out. That's amazing.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yes. And I also love to ask if you could just like plant a seed of an idea or a seed of truth in everybody's mind that is watching or listening to this, what would you want everybody to know?
Oh, that's so good. What's top of mind as of late is that this is so cliche, but I think just like asking your listeners to sit into it, but the unimaginable is attainable. And your dreams can be your reality. You just have to decide that it is today. And I think I'm such a big believer in like, don't wait. Yes, you don't have evidence right now of, whatever you're after, whether that's a bigger business, maybe it's even more personal. You want to grow in your marriage or want to deepen your relationship with your kids. But whatever that is, it's not about waiting until you get there. It's about deciding today that is your reality and then stepping into that version of yourself that's created that. And I think we just watch so many people kind of hang around waiting for something. And I think this concept just allows you to take control. And even if you don't have any circumstantial evidence right now that your dreams are reality, just decide that it is. And then just be the person, that version, right, today. And that's so beautiful.
I love that so much. And where can people go to learn more from you, about you, all those good things?
Yeah, I'm hanging out on Instagram as of late. So at Kinsey Machos, would love to connect with your listeners over there.
Amazing. And of course, as usual, we will put all of the links into the show notes on the site, wherever you're listening, all of that good stuff. Kinsey, thank you so much. This was such a valuable and soul-warming conversation. So thank you so much for making the time and for sharing your genius.
Yes, thank you for having me. And Kay, you're such an amazing leader and I love your energy. And I'm so thankful that you invited me here today. Like, what a gift. Thank you so much.
I love this conversation so much. Kinsey is a gorgeous soul inside and out. I hope you got a lot out of this conversation as well. And be sure to head over to Instagram to say hello and talk to both Kinsey and I. I would love to hear who has been listening and what aha moments or value you have been getting from this episode. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe, rate, and review. It truly does help so much. If you know entrepreneurs who are working on building a business that is true to their innate strengths and genius, I would love if you sent them my way so that they can also learn from this show, my quiz, and other branding resources. Thank you. I will see you next time.